Hello everybody, Ron Wildman in here on your Middle Georgia Spotlight, and we're in the middle of Black History Month, and we have one of the most historical people in the city of Macon who's still with us, mind you, former Mayor Jack Ellis.
Well, good to be with you. I'm glad to still be with you.
And you're not just a statue or anything.
Exactly.
Black History Month, what does it mean to you?
Well, when I think of Black history, Ron, I think of sadness, I think of pain, I think of perseverance, and I think of joy, all of those emotions. When I say I think of pain, because I realize that when you look at Black history, especially in this country, and look at my own family, which I can trace back to 5 generations here in Macon, well, 4 generations, I'm the fourth generation here in Macon, that my great-grandparents were enslaved people here. So that's the pain. And of course, the joy is that out of that pain came my grandfather, who persevered, got an education, my father's father, and of course, and then my own father, who grew up in Jim Crow Macon, and you know, and having to survive that, and then my being born here in Macon and growing up during the Jim Crow era, and saw some other things and saw some pain. But yet the perseverance through all of that, my father never lost hope and never gave up on America, so to speak, on the U.S., that things would get better. And then to have his son, the great-grandson of his enslaved mother, my enslaved grandmother, where we get the name Ellis from, because she was owned by a gentleman by the name of John Ellis here in Macon. So to come from that, and then to have her grandson be the first African-American mayor in the city of Macon, where she was enslaved, so that shows that we've overcome a lot. So that's where the perseverance, and then of course joy, because it was a very joyous occasion becoming mayor. And it was a very joyous occasion, the 2 terms that I spent as mayor, although there was some difficult days, but on balance, it was a very joyous occasion for me.
Well, you bridged that gap from the Jim Crow era into the era now. How much improvement have we made?
Well, obviously we've made a lot of improvement, because to be honest with you, Ron, I love the city of Macon. And when I grew up as a boy here, I didn't love Macon very much. I loved my family. I loved the people that were involved in my life. But when I stepped out into greater Macon, I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the colored and white water fountains. I didn't like to see that we couldn't go in certain restaurants and sit and have a hamburger, Crystal, for instance. And that there were so many things that you couldn't do, so I couldn't love that. But I've obviously come full circle, and I love my city. I love what it stands for now. I love the trajectory that it's on, and hopefully it will continue to move forward.
Now, let's talk about history. I think back during those 8 years you were in there, you named more streets and places, the square in front of City Hall, with Black heroes.
Exactly, Ron. And why that was important to me, because a lot of these people have been overlooked and just omitted in the history of our city, the annals of history in our city. For instance, Henry McNeil Turner, the main post office here in Macon now, is named after Henry McNeil Turner. Well, a lot of people didn't know who Henry McNeil Turner was, or the role that he played in Macon's history. Well, he represented Macon and the legislature during the time of Reconstruction, after slavery ended here, and he was one of the key members of drawing the Georgia Constitution, the current Constitution that we have. He served on that convention. And later, Ulysses Grant appointed him as the postmaster in Macon, but the white fathers, if you will, the city fathers, had some problems with the black man being the postmaster, so he literally never served, even though he was appointed, confirmed, whatever they had to do in those days.
And now his name's on the post office.
Exactly, but that came about because during my term of mayor, I contacted Henry McNeil Turner was a Republican, so I contacted Saxby Chambliss, who was our representative in a Republican, told him the story and what I would like to do, and he introduced the legislation to, and Max Cleveland, who was in the Senate at the time, co-sponsored it, the legislation, so hence we have the bill named in honor of Henry McNeil Turner.
You worked well with Saxby, didn't you?
I did. He was a very, I guess you would say, based on what I see now, some of the things happening in the Republican Party, he was a moderate, and I guess by these standards, he would be considered a liberal. Some of the things that I see going. But he was a good man. He was a fair person, and he believed in assisting locally elected officials.
Well, the key thing when you're a mayor, when you can pick up that phone and give them a call, they take your call.
Exactly, and he did.
Yes, he did.
If I needed to speak to him about anything, and he would help move projects and help get money, and without just not asking me about my political affiliation, that he just cared about the people in the city of Macon.
I know you went off to the service. You were in Vietnam. We've discussed that several times over the years. You're a great patriot. But wouldn't that be very hard to do, having the beginning you did in that era?
It was, but what I saw in the military. Let me back up here a minute. I remember when I was in the 8th grade, getting ready to go to the 9th grade, and I asked my father about the Lanier boys who walked around with the prestige uniforms on. And I asked him, I would like to wear one of those uniforms. I'd like to go to that.
You can't do that.
Well,
no. What do you?
No, that's for white boys only. I said, oh, okay. But I didn't. But it stung. It really stung me as a 13, 14-year-old. And I was determined to wear the uniform of this country. And I didn't know I would get to wear it like that, but I wanted to wear it. And what I saw in the military, I had a brother-in-law who was in the military during the Korean War and came home. He married my sister, and this was, I would have been about
Is that the preacher?
No, not him. Another one.
He was in the military too.
Yeah, he was. He was in the Vietnam War. This was in the Korean War, and I was about 6, 7, maybe 8 years old, 7 years old, I think. And he, how good the Army was, how they treated them in the Army, because the Army had then been integrated. This would have been in the early 50s. So I thought, of course, if I joined the Army, I would have to deal with segregation and racism and discrimination anymore. So, and it turned out to be true.
That you didn't have to deal with it.
We had to deal with it, but legally, not legally. Were there some races that I read? Did I meet some sergeants and officers in the military who portrayed some racist traits? Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I will tell you a story, Ron. I got promoted to sergeant as a very young guy. I think I was like 19 years old, and I was promoted to sergeant. And I had been a corporal with another young man from Alabama, that young white man. Never forget his last name, Good. And I got promoted, so therefore now I'm in charge to tell him what to do. And when I told him to do something, he told me, I don't take orders from black people. He didn't use that word. He used
I understand.
He used the N-word. And I hit the guy, hit him in the face when he said that, because so much of what I had experienced here in Macon, all this anger that was in me, and of course came out. And I remember my captain telling me, well, that's not how leaders sell their differences. You don't put your hands on anyone. You have to
had the law behind you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But you have to. He said, I could really charge you with assault. You hit this guy. I said, but he called me this derogatory name. He said, I don't care. You have to find different ways to settle those type of disputes. And lo and behold, Ron, that served me well. I was here in Macon as mayor. I don't even know whether I've ever shared this with you. I went out to a place called Whiskey River. A guy named Ernie owned that place. And he invited me out. He wanted to talk to me about the police department harassing his patrons after they would leave at night.
Waiting for him to
Yes.
DUI.
Exactly. So he wanted me to, he thought it wasn't fair because it was scaring his business. And while I was in that place talking to him, a huge guy, a white guy, came up and said and called me that same name that this young man had called me. And my first instinct was to punch him in the face as well. But because of this lesson that I learned early on as a 19-year-old, not to settle difference that way. Furthermore, that I can see the news now, the mayor involved in a bar brawl, you know. So, so that was a lesson learned as a 19-year-old that served me well as a 50-something year.
Well, how'd that episode end?
You know,
The Whiskey River.
I went to, the guy was real big, huge, you know, and I probably could have gotten one lick in and probably would have socked me. But anyway, I moved around him and went to Ernie. He was at the bar, and I went to Ernie. And I said, Ernie, don't you have bodyguards here? He said, yes. I said, you mind, you know, one escorted me to my car. He said, what happened? I said, something very bad happened, but we'll talk about it later. You have a customer here that wants to be a little belligerent. So, and I left. Haven't seen that guy since. Maybe if he would remember it if he listens to this particular program, he would remember that incident.
Well, you know, here in Macon, race is important still in some ways, you know, but not legally. But I've never told you this. I never came in one day when we were together for 7 years at City Hall that you complained, oh, woe is me. They're picking on a black man again, or you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And I always admired you for that, because you could easily have done that, because I saw some of the letters you got. I remember the brick being thrown through the window and stuff like that. But you pushed on, kept positive.
Exactly, because I wasn't ever going to play the race card. I didn't want to use that as an excuse. I didn't want it for my success or my failures, you know. I wanted to be judged as a human being, one that was worthy of the position that the people had entrusted me with, and so it wasn't just about making history. It was about making a difference and serving all of the people in the city of Macon, whether they voted for me or not. And I know a lot of them didn't, but it didn't matter, because we had a job to do, and that was trying to leave the city a little better than we found it. And I think we worked very hard at that with a very dedicated team, you included, who worked on a daily basis to deliver services to the people of the city.
Another thing, most people don't know this either, you didn't have the finances to
My
use
God.
that they had, because we had a county government and the city government, and I know that county government will let you have a nickel more than they thought you might get.
And exactly, that was the thing. It was, and if I had to do it over again, I don't think we told our story well enough about the finances, because a narrative was kind of created as though we were just spending money willy-nilly and, you know, not having.
You got to have it first.
Exactly. But what happened once we had and it's a long story. People, the average person don't understand this. But every 10 years, the city and county has to renegotiate the sales tax redistribution. We were getting 80% of the taxes, and then after the 2000 census, the county wanted they wanted us to go to 60%. They wanted 40%. They were getting 20%. But the fact of the matter is, if we hadn't agreed on taking a less percentage, then the money would be held by the state, and the state wouldn't send any sales taxes down to you. We couldn't afford that, because 30% of our budget was based on sales taxes, whereas the county, only 10% of its budget based. So they could play really hardball with us, and they had us between a rock and a hard place. So I agreed to take a less percentage, which I shouldn't have, but I did. And which meant that we didn't have as much revenue coming in as we had heretofore, and which meant we had to spend some reserves in order to keep things moving until we could right the ship. And we did right the ship. We left office with over $6 million in the reserves, and so I'm very proud of that.
And most of the projects you wanted to get in, I think you did develop.
Yeah, we got most of them in. I mean, we built the hotel. We said we were going to build a hotel. We built it. We said we were going to systematically change neighborhoods, especially get rid of some public housing, and we did with Oglethorpe Homes, redeveloped the Bills Hills area. And we said we were going to focus on home ownership, and we had a tremendous increase in low-income people owning their own homes, because, as you know, home ownership is still the best avenue for wealth in our society. So we did what we said we were going to do. We wanted to do something with our youth development. We did that, you know, through summer work programs and everything else. So we're very pleased with what we accomplished.
Well, I remember they wanted to tear the train station down years ago, and it was saved, but it was just there. And during your administration, you got with it.
Really did, and I'm very proud of our work there as well, because we were working very hard on getting Atlanta. We're still talking about it, Atlanta to Macon rail, but we worked very hard on that. But in order to do it, we had to have a depot. And so that place was sitting there. Georgia Power owned it. It was in kind of bad repair. So I decided to buy it and turn it into a multimodal facility. And I remember, thanks to you, you introduced me to a young man who could restore those seats. When you go in that place now, you see those beautiful seats in that, not in the colored waiting room, but the other part, and the main one, and you see those beautiful chairs, those beautiful seats that were restored. I had no idea that guy would be able to bring them back to life the way he did. And that was the last thing I did the night before I left office, was to give that man his final, I think, $30,000 check for doing that, and signed off on it and received it as a completed.
We did that at midnight.
That sure did.
The last minute, we did.
Yeah.
But also, you brought back some history with that station. You have that carved on the wall up there. What's that message on the wall up there? Here
again, it's engraved. This building was built in 1916, speaking of colored history, black history. This, we used to be known as Colored History Month, by the way. Then when Negro History, now it's Black History Month. When that building was built in 1916, the city fathers saw fit to engrave, put in stone, colored waiting room, where because we were segregated, and of course the black people had to go to the small place as opposed to the big place now where we have all the beautiful events. So that, I knew it was there, Ron. I knew it was there from a boy. I knew it was there. It was in stone, so I mean it would always be there. But Georgia Power, I guess, thought it was offensive and covered it up, put a board over it and put their logo. So when we bought it, one of the first things I wanted to do was uncover it, and I did. Personally, myself, I had them to hoist me up on a forklift, and I personally took that cover off of it. And it will be there forever. It's a reminder of who we were, not who we are, but who we were. And for generations yet unborn to say, this is how far we have come. This beautiful, magnificent building here at one time treated its black citizens less than citizens and made them go in this little dungeon to wait on the train, whereas in this big, beautiful, marvelous building here, it's white citizens, but now could use it, but now we all could use it. So that means that we have made gigantic steps along the way.
Of course, these days there's a lot of activity going on downtown, but the last tall building put up came during your administration.
That's right. The first office building, first-class office building, built for a long time. We got that done. They've called it the Triangle Building, right on the corner of Mulberry and MLK. And we started the loft projects downtown. You know, initiated First Friday, started the first lofts downtown, went to the old Hap shirt factory on MLK. That was our first big loft area. And then we started the redevelopment of downtown, the lower Annapolis Street. I think Dr. Justice and a group of came, and we interested them in getting that that whole block taken care of. So the things that's happening now, we started it, and that's a good thing. You know, because we all cheer for our successors, or at least we should. If we love the city, we want our successors to do well. So it's kind of like being mayor is like a relay. You know, you take it so far and you hand it off to the next guy, and he takes it so far and he hands it off to the next man or woman, and let them take it on. So I'm pleased with the work that we started. You mentioned naming the park in honor of Mrs. Rosa Parks in front of City Hall.
That was a recent dedication.
Exactly. And you know, and you were very instrumental in making sure that things were recognized, that we had the proper plaques and things in that park, recognizing those from Macon who had played a role in the civil rights movement. Dr. King's visit here, Mrs. Osbel McKay and others. So we have taken a national, or international icon, brought it right in front of City Hall, and dedicated something in her honor. And why it was important to name this park in her honor? She was the mother of the civil rights movement and will always be considered, which led to, that's happened in '55, right after Brown versus Board of Education, the Montgomery bus boycott, which gave rise to Dr. King, which led to the Voting Rights, Civil Rights Act of 1964, the year of my 18th birthday. Well, so legal segregation was legal until 1964 in this town, and gave rise to the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which made it possible for someone like me to be elected mayor of the city of Macon. So this is an honor, to a monument to her and all the other people who show that I stand, both national, locally, as well as international.
You black soldiers in Vietnam were the emphasis for a lot of this civil rights movement. Nobody talks about that much, but you would talk about it over there with the soldiers, fellow soldiers, about coming back to the same old thing.
Exactly. And what I would hear from young soldiers who had been drafted, and once they saw what the war was about and what was going on back home, because we got newspapers sometimes, and you would hear Dr. King's speeches and others. I was in Vietnam when Dr. King was assassinated, by the way. And so we would have conversations about that, and we would have mixed feelings about, we were soldiers, we wanted to survive, we wanted to do our duties, we had been drafted, or some of us had joined, but we wanted to do our duties. By the same token, we realized that we were fighting on two fronts, if you will. We were fighting there, but we realized back home people were still fighting for their rights. And I think, I don't think any other people that I know, any other group of people that served in combat would have that type of dilemma, if you will. Even World War II, because in World War II, Ron, you remember the services were segregated, but the black soldiers were appealing to fight then because they wanted to prove that I am as much American as you are, I am as patriotic as you are, and I can fly planes, I can drive tanks, I can fight too, because the narrative was that maybe black soldiers were not capable, which we knew that was a falsehood, because remember that in the 1800s, we had used black soldiers to fight the Indians. Now you're talking about, must have been a dichotomy, if you will, for a black man. Here you are in America, you're being denied your rights, and you've been asked by your government now to go hunt down and kill another oppressed people, the Native American. So we have been asked as black men in uniform to do some extraordinary things, and we excel as doing some extraordinary things that maybe some people would say, how could you possibly, the Buffalo Soldiers is the name of the group that we were talking about, how could you chase down and kill Indians when you were being discriminated against? And even in Vietnam, and that's what we heard. And we heard a lot of that from Hanoi Anna and other propagandists in Vietnam. They would bring that same thing up. how you guys over here killing us? They don't even treat you right back home, and you over here trying to kill the people. We too are being oppressed, So that plays on your mind.
So when you came back eventually to Macon, what historical area did you jump into to do what you did?
Well, the area that I really went, you mean when I became mayor?
No, before. What prompted you to get involved with politics? You ran for the legislature.
Yeah, I ran for the state senate in 1991.
Yeah.
And what prompted me to get involved in politics? I had worked for the Census Bureau, and I had been transferred to Macon. I hadn't lived in Macon since, my God, 1963. I've been in and out. And when they put me in charge of the Census Bureau, and I looked at Macon statistics, and I remember after we looked at all the statistics, the poverty rate, education, teen pregnancy, everything else, that home ownership, and I said, Macon can do better. We, especially when I looked at the minority population in Macon, we had not advanced the way the rest of the city had. So I bought my first house in a historic district, Cherokee Heights, when I moved back to Macon, and got involved in the community, joined the neighborhood association, wanted to make sure that we kept the neighborhood clean and kept it up, because it was a neighborhood that I recall I used to cut grass in that neighborhood. My father used to have a grass cutting, and that was an all-white neighborhood at the time. So I bought a home in that area and got to know a lot of people in that area. And from there, lost that race, ran again in 95, and then when I finally won.
You lost that race in 95, but then?
Lost it by 109 votes, by the way. And 4 years later, ran again in 99 and won with 53% of the vote. Against great odds. I mean, against great odds, because we didn't have that much money. Of course, running against a well-known figure who had been mayor before and who had a ton of money.
Mayor Melton.
Mayor Buck Melton, and but we were able to overcome and persevere. So it was a great night.
And then you went for a second term.
Exactly. Here again, we wanted to let our work speak for us. We wanted to go back to the people. The first time we said catch the vision. We went back for the second term. Okay, here's what our vision was. We said we were going to tear down all of these houses, get rid of blight, build more houses. We did that. We said we were going to start downtown revitalization. We started that. We said we were going to do as much as we could in the human development side with our youth and people getting them from welfare to work. We created the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development to tackle that problem. So people saw what we had accomplished and said yes to another 4 years.
And some of the young people you brought into government are now elders in the government, or they've retired.
Exactly, and some of them were doing well. I see some of them now. For instance, a young man that worked at my security was a sergeant at the time in the Macon Police Department. He's a major now in the sheriff department. So
Raymond Reynolds.
Raymond Reynolds did a good job for us. Yeah.
What do you see as the future? Very quickly, we're almost out of time. The future of the city.
Well, I hope that Macon will continue to thrive, but we can't forget the neighborhoods, the least of the, if you will. We have some neighborhoods that, that's not shining as bright as the rest of them, and we've got to put some attention in those neighborhoods. But I think, on balance, I think we're on the right path.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate you stopping by and sharing this history with us, because you are history.
Well, thank you, Ron. Good to be with you.
Thank you, folks, for being with us. I'm Ron Wildman over here at WMUB TV. Thank you.